We just launched OpenBB as a Snowflake native app, and today I am building the GDP Growth Rates Monitor powered entirely by Snowflake public data. The Bureau of Economic Analysis has released the advance estimate of fourth quarter 2025 GDP on February 20th, giving markets the first comprehensive look at growth. On March 13th, the BEA will publish the second estimate, incorporating additional data and often revising the growth narrative in meaningful ways. This is the first signal, but not the final word. Revisions move markets. So let's dive into numbers with OpenBB. The real GDP increased at an annual rate of 1.4% in the fourth quarter of 2025, according to the advance estimate. On the screen, I am showing that 1.4% headline growth rate, alongside the full expenditure breakdown that drives the result. While several components contribute positively, the decline in government spending clearly stands out and weighs on the overall pace of expansion. I also introduced two new BI features in this app. First, I create simple arithmetic calculations as reusable views, which allow me to compute growth contributions or spreads directly within the data structure, and in this case, I use net exports as the example. Second, I use a chart navigator that allows me to isolate specific time slices, so I can zoom into recent cycles while still preserving long-term historical context. The release also reports the GDP price deflator and the latest PCE price index readings. The spread between the deflator and PCE has opened up, adding another layer of complexity to interpreting price pressures. In the previous episode on the inflation monitor, I noted that CPI and PCE were already moving in unusual steps, and now with the deflator diverging as well, tracking U.S. inflation is becoming harder and increasingly murky. Growth is moderate. Inflation signals are diverging. The picture is less straightforward than it appears. Briefing time. Instead of reading charts and manually scanning tables, I ask OpenBB Copilot to generate a structured summary of this entire tab. I do not specify a single widget or a single column. I simply point to the tab and let Copilot interpret the layout, review widget descriptions, inspect column definitions, and reason through the available data. OpenBB Copilot provides a complete audit trail so I can see every widget it references, every query it runs, and every artifact it generates. If I like the result, I can promote that output directly into the dashboard as a saved object. Now I want to go one level deeper. The headline breakdown shows government spending as a drag on growth this quarter, but I want historical perspective. How common is it for government spending to subtract from GDP growth over the last 20 years? That question goes beyond the current tab, so I explicitly ask Copilot to guide me to the relevant data and cite its sources. Copilot points out that I already have a widget on a separate tab that breaks government spending into federal and state and local components. That is exactly the decomposition I need. So from chat, I scroll directly to that tab and continue the analysis without breaking flow. Once we examine the split, the story becomes more nuanced than the headline suggests. Federal government spending shows a significant contraction this quarter, and that decline meaningfully contributes to the overall drag on GDP. The scale of the federal pullback is materially larger than what we have seen in recent quarters, and it aligns with the current administration's fiscal policy direction. At the same time, state and local government spending tells a different story. That component is still growing at roughly the same pace as before, and it appears largely unchanged relative to the prior administration. The aggregate government drag headline therefore masks a divergence between federal retrenchment and stable subnational spending. I can apply the same decomposition logic to consumption and investment. Let's speed run these two. I see that spending on services continues to expand at a steady pace, while non-durable goods are slowing. Durable goods show an outright decline. Think of categories like appliances and furniture, which tend to be more cyclical and interest rate sensitive. The composition of consumption therefore tells a more cautious story than the aggregate number suggests. On the investment side, the divergence is even more visible. The United States continues to invest less in buildings and structures, both residential and non-residential, reflecting the sustained impact of higher financing costs and tighter credit conditions. At the same time, businesses are making meaningful headway in intellectual property products and equipment, signaling a shift toward technology, software, and productivity-enhancing capital rather than physical expansion. Let's close this episode by shifting to trade. I asked OpenBB Copilot to draft a short memo on the trade balance, separating goods and services because tariff policy is back in the headlines and trade dynamics are once again central to the macro conversation. The BEA publishes a dedicated international trade release, and I plan to build a separate app around that dataset in the future, but for now I stay within the relevant series already available in this table. This time, I do not pre-compute the aggregates inside a widget using BI logic. Instead, I describe the aggregation rules directly in my prompt and let Copilot calculate the goods balance, the services balance, and then compute a 10-year median and interquartile range. That statistical framing allows me to place the latest readings during the Trump administration into proper historical context, rather than reacting to a single monthly print. Copilot performs the aggregation, documents the sources, and returns a structured memo that I can immediately reuse. I can validate the cited series, review the logic, and if needed, promote the output into a permanent tab. Now I save the dashboard as a new app. I share it with colleagues. And voila, that is the GDP Growth Rates Monitor, powered by Snowflake Public Data, delivered as an OpenBB Snowflake native app. We just launched in the Snowflake Marketplace, and this is only the starting point. I will continue publishing new dashboards and application ideas to demonstrate what is possible. If you would like to try it, visit the OpenBB website or our Snowflake Marketplace listing. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time for another application showcase.